In this section, I want to kick off talking about how we apply our models within our organization. We started the module off by answering and talking about the importance of that number one question: how does your product grow? We need to be able to understand and answer this question in a consistent way across our organization, and we do that by building growth models. We talked about 3 different types of growth models. The first at the foundation was a qualitative model, which has the strength that it's great for broader communication, brainstorming, and strategic thinking, but lacks the accurate quantitative measures that help us with prioritization, goal setting, and understanding outcomes. We went through a few different examples, linking together our habit loops, our acquisition loops, and our linear activities in a super easy whiteboardable version of our growth model and able to communicate it across our team. We then used that qualitative model to identify single loops that we wanted to dive a little bit deeper on and build quantitative models out. The strengths of the single loop quant model helps us validate and prioritize ideas around a single loop without dealing with the complications of the end-to-end model. But it doesn't really help us understand how multiple loops might work together and influence each other over time. We started this off by building out a qualitative or our loop map by identifying, defining all of the different steps, output metrics, their conversion formulas, and then pulling out their conversion variables and identifying their baselines. We translated this loop map into a loop-specific quant model, one where we could play with all of the individual variables of our loop to see how it might affect things over time. After that, we went through a tops-down approach to building an end-to-end quantitative model. The strengths of the end-to-end quantitative model are, since it brings together all of the interaction points into one model, it's great for goal setting and building confidence around large strategic investments, as well as trying to come up with directionally correct predictions. Unfortunately, it's typically too complicated or too big to understand unless you're living in it on a day-to-day basis, so it ends up being terrible for broader communication within the organization. To do this, we used a hypothetical example called the Reforged Professional Network, which was a portfolio site for growth professionals. We first laid out our qualitative hypotheses around our acquisition and our retention loops. We then identified our key output and broke it down into all of its individual inputs and then projected it out for more than 12 months to understand how our quantitative model might play out over time. But now that we've built these 3 different models, we need to talk a little bit about how do we apply these models a little bit more specifically within our organization. In this section, we're going to be walking through 5 different ways to put the model into practice within your org. The first is around predicting and projections and peering into possible futures. The second is around goal setting, so understanding the possible paths to reach some goal that we've identified. The third is prioritizing or deciding between X and Y initiatives. The fourth is communication and explaining why something might be so important, using our model as a tool to communicate that reason why. And finally, we'll talk about the need to continually update our model and how our model is a working hypothesis that continually evolves.